Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Policy Institute. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Pat Hughes, co-founder of the Illinois Opportunity Project, in this edition of Illinois Rising. And Pat, the minimum wage is being taken up by municipalities around the state, and particularly around Cook County because of the Cook County ordinance to raise the minimum wage that takes effect July 1st. And it's been interesting, the response from different suburbs, including suburbs like Wilmette, which certainly leans left. They opted out of it because government pricing, the economics of government pricing, even some Democrats get hip to it when they're going to be afflicted by it. Oak Park hasn't opted out of the Cook County ordinance to raise the minimum wage. But that doesn't mean that they're not concerned about it. Peter Morava, in a story that was done for West Cook News, who's the owner of Oak Park's Careful Peach Boutique, I don't know how much CPS business he gets, but said the cost to small and mid-sized business owners will go far more than just the wage increase, notably from state, federal, and county payroll taxes, workers' comp, and insurance. It should be noted that certain jobs are to be entry-level, meaning the value of the job is more than the payment. It is a life learning lesson, developing skills like an internship. Basically, your first real job, other than babysitting extras, to teach you to show up when scheduled, dress appropriately for work, interact properly with others, receive instruction, and accomplish simple tasks. And he goes on to say, let me be clear. Every one of my employees is paid more than minimum wage, and I am a Democrat. But to have my village, my county, and my state dictating compensation levels for my business when they haven't paid their bills, already paid for by our tax money, owed to our neighbors for over 2 years is ludicrous. It's so easy to spend other people's money. Maybe Mr. Morava, the proprietor, should reconsider his partisan affiliation.
Yeah, and he should consider maybe running for public office because that makes a lot of sense. You know, Dan, there's always a lot of theoretical discussion on minimum wage from the right. We say it's a job killer. On the left, they want to, appease people by saying, look, we care about you. But the reality of it is just this week in Seattle, Seattle tried this, right? They're trying to raise slowly the minimum wage. They raise it from 11 to 13 and ultimately to $15. And the evidence is in. Cal Berkeley did a study on this, and the study shows that during that period of time, as the minimum wage increased, people made less money, Dan, because their hours were slashed. There were less jobs to have. And the reason is, unless you're going to force a minimum wage down the throat of employers and have a concomitant requirement that they hire a certain amount of people for a certain amount of hours, they're going to cut their hours and cut their people and cut their labor costs, or else they won't be able to make money because there's only so much they can pass on to consumers. And so this has been tried in Seattle recently, got a lot of feel-good stories, and it's failing. Right?
Well, that wasn't the Berkeley study. That was the University of Washington study. Berkeley was the Cook study. The University of Washington study, to your point, just to fill in the blanks, Pat, found that hours worked for minimum wage earners dropped by 9%. The average worker making less than $19 an hour in Seattle has seen a total loss of $125 a month since the law went into effect. So government policy hurting the stated beneficiaries. This is something that people need to reconcile. You don't trust government to do big things, generally speaking. And so stop being surprised when government says, we're going to do this on the front end, and here's going to be the effect, and you only pay attention to the front end, and you're surprised when the effect is to hurt the people the government said they were going to help through this particular policy. This happens all of the time, and is certainly the case with government wage setting. It turns out the government and the mystics, who are just other human beings in government, they're not super omniscient beings that exist only in the public sector. They're just, Sally's and Joe's exist in your private sector workplace or in your neighborhood or any other organization to which you affiliate. And they don't have the secret knowledge to properly calibrate how much someone's work is worth to a particular proprietor, or the cost structure that different businesses and different sectors face when they do these cookie cutter price fixing policies. And so, of course, there are externalities. I mean, it's hilarious. A 538 blog with all those eggheads like Nate Cohen, formerly Nate Silver, their headline, Perhaps Seattle minimum wage went too far this week. You think? Boy, who could have predicted that price controls would lead to externalities except anyone who's ever taken and passed an Econ 101 course? Yeah, it's absurd.
And the real problem, Dan, is the people you talk about, the Sallys and the Joes, they don't care about the economic policy and the economic impact. What they care about is getting the social and political benefit of saying, I'm fighting to raise your wages, and then hiding all the negatives. Dan Biss, the guy running for governor of the senator, he wants there to be a statewide minimum wage increase. He knows Ronner is going to veto the one that passed, right? But he wants the benefit of saying, I'm fighting for you politically. He doesn't care about the people. He cares about how it impacts how they view him politically.
Right, and just to show you how they have to continue, once they cook the books on the policy, they have to continue cooking the books on the research. Mark Perry over at Carpe Diem blog sussed this out nicely. The Cal research that you mentioned was because Seattle Mayor Ed Murray, who is not running again because he has a problem with paying young men for sex. So
that's a problem.
So he's not running again.
Is he out of money? What's the problem? Is it he doesn't have the money for it, or
I don't know exactly, but he's decided not to run again.
Did you read it? Did you research that?
I just know he was doing this. That was discovered. Then he didn't run. I don't know the underlying rationale necessarily. So but he knew this Washington study was coming out. So they got hired economists for hire over at Cal Berkeley to do a study finding, quote, Seattle minimum wage ordinance has raised wages for low-paid workers without negatively affecting employment. And then the Washington to try and blunt the impact of the Washington study, which finds their hours are cut and their take-home pay has been cut. So the hourly wage is the same. So the Berkeley headline is misleading. Yes, the hourly wage has been increased. So what we did is we cut your hours,
right?
So you take home less pay. And the point of this, from their perspective, was we're going to give people more money for the work they do by raising the minimum wage, and the business community responded by cutting the hours to maintain their labor costs in such a way that their businesses can be profitable. And so on the one hand, you have bad policy, and then on the other hand, you spur phony baloney research to prop up your bad policy because it's about a political agenda. It's not even about the intended beneficiaries. It's about the virtue signaling that the left is hyper focused on doing because they think that's the pathway not only to political power, but also to reshaping American society into one of these kind of, socialist democracies you see in Europe.
And there's such a social cost to it too, Dan, because not only are hours reduced, people don't get that first job, or they lose the job they had at a lower rate. So what does that do? Now they're out of work. There's the social cost and the social stigma of that. And someone's going to have to pay for welfare, for food stamps, for whatever. So the beat goes on and on and on with these bad policies and how they impact people, particularly poor people, negatively, that the same people promoting these policies are saying they want to protect.
And just specific to the Cook County minimum wage increase ordinance, so far more than 50 of the county's 132 municipalities have used their home rule power to opt out of the Cook County wage hike and sick leave mandate because at least some people, even in Cook County, understand simple economics.